Hello, and welcome to Trust Your Sacred Feminine Flow. I'm your host, Joni Advent Maher, mystic, spiritual midwife, and visionary leadership guide. It's my great pleasure to share inspiring and intimate conversations and emerging wisdom gathered from our collective feminine journey of awakening. My guests are revolutionary women at the cutting edge of both personal and global transformation. I invite you to join us in claiming our sovereignty, changing the world, and flourishing no matter what. Welcome to the show, beloveds. I'm so glad to be with you again, and I am delighted to share my guest with you today. I have invited Lori McDaniel to join us. So welcome, Lori.
Thank you so much for having me.
Lori is the founder of Rainbow Bridges, a transformational learning community for women that is dedicated to transforming racism into love through the power of conversations. Her background includes 20 years of corporate technology consulting, training, and learning design. And along the way, she became a transformational coach and facilitator and has coached hundreds of people over the last decade. She is formally trained in transformational coaching methodologies, which include transformational design, coaching, and facilitation. She is currently leading a program called Confident and Clear that teaches women how to have confident, clear, transformative conversations about race. She also leads transformational women's circles and participates in sacred feminine spiritual work. Her specialty is in bringing warmth and grace to subjects that are hard for people to talk about. She creates a safe chrysalis for growth, learning, and tender vulnerability that leads to deep and lasting transformation. Welcome, Lori.
Thank you so much, Joni.
So I have to say, each segment that as I deepened through your bio of what you're up to, my heart was kind of opening more and more. And this idea, like each new thing was like, and that, and that, and that. And this idea that you create a safe chrysalis for growth, learning, and tender vulnerability is such a powerful medicine. So I would love to just hear you speak about just that aspect of yourself, or how you came to recognize that was one of your soul gifts.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, I think that I think I've always known that I was compassionate and sort of tough on the outside and sort of tender on the inside, and very sensitive to how other people felt. Of course, in adulthood, realizing that that's empathic ability, really, and being sensitive to energy, being sensitive to how other people feel, and so on, and caring about it, and caring about how others feel. And in the work that I'm doing now around both empowering women in general, which is a passion of mine, and then empowering women to have great conversations, authentic, transformative conversations around race, I really realized over time, coaching so many people, getting trained in transformational design, like how do you actually orchestrate a transformation, right? And that it can be orchestrated, it can be caused. And so in these experiences, it just became really clear to me that there has to be this really tender, safe, warm chrysalis,
Yes.
that people can grow in, and feel safe in, to be imperfect, and to grow.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's so difficult in any kind of sticky or emotionally charged conversation, much less around one of the most charged conversations, to feel that way.
Yes. Yes.
So that's
Absolutely.
really, really where that comes from, is that it became really clear to me as my mission, my soul mission is transformation. And so I've gotten trained in how to do that. And I've gotten very good at how to actually orchestrate it. And it only happens when there is that warm, safe space, that tender, tender place to expand and grow and transform.
Yes. So the women that you're working with, the women that are participating in your program, have you seen kind of that evolution coming from that place of safety? Or
Yes.
can you describe that or tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. Actually, I love that question. I was really happy and just really satisfied last week in our I have a 10-week program which I've shared with you about, Confident and Clear, and we're at in the last couple of weeks of it, and so we've been reflecting on the growth. I've actually asked for women to share, I really want you to reflect on and appreciate the growth that you've gone through. And so one of the women shared, a white woman in the course, she shared that she's so much more comfortable now being uncomfortable.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I thought it was so profound for her to put it that way, because
Yes.
it's so uncomfortable to be talking about race from any point of view. It's not comfortable. And yet so many of us don't talk about it enough because we're not comfortable being so uncomfortable. And I loved that she had that growth breakthrough where she still feels uncomfortable, but she now kind of has this ability to create resources around her, like a bubble almost,
Yes.
so she can be safe and feel safe emotionally while she's feeling uncomfortable. It's sort of paradoxical, but that's one of the things that I teach, how to actually create that from within.
Yeah, so it's a real sense of resilience is what I'm hearing. You're fostering a resilience, as in a capacity to hang in there on that tough edge and just make yourself at home on that.
That's a really great way of saying it. That's right. Because I think we're conditioned to be very fragile,
Yes.
I really love the book and the body of work, White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. And I think that it applies to white people exactly as she says. And there's what I've started to call color fragility in general, too, where people are so uncomfortable out there on the skinny branches. I like your analogy. Like, so fragile. Like, we just kind of I can't take it. And then we run away, or we blow up, or we get defensive, or we attack. And that's kind of a cross color. It just looks different.
Yes.
It comes out a little differently. And so, I think that the resilience you're pointing to is a good way of calling it. And I also name it as resources. I should say I name it that way. I'm mentored in the realm of feminine power by Dr. Claire Zammit. And I'm in her facilitation, world as a mentee, facilitator. And she gives us permission to incorporate aspects of her work. That's one of the most important things in feminine power, is to develop and cultivate this ability to resource yourself from within, not from circumstances or what someone's saying or not saying, that kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's where our true power lies. Because if we're relying on external circumstances to keep us safe, we're basically in trouble.
Right, exactly. You're going to be fragile and not be able to be in these conversations, or to, you're always going to be falling to pieces, is what I call it, feeling like you're
Yes.
falling to pieces. You're too fragile to be in these conversations unless you have that ability, to source yourself from within.
Yes. Well, one of the things that I love about that perspective, but also I'm really curious just speaking with you, is you are someone who identifies as a light worker.
Mm-hmm.
So, which to me implies spirituality in nature, but you're also dealing with this really real life, nitty gritty, like on the ground, boots on the ground issue. And that is like, that for me is a really interesting combination. And so I would love, if you're open to it, just to hear you talking about inside, within yourself, like how those worlds integrate, or how one informs the other. Do they inform, does your kind of working with the real life pain and suffering in the world, does it inform your light work, so to speak? Or do you know what I'm asking?
Mm-hmm.
Am I being clear?
Yeah, I think oh yeah, definitely. I think it's a really interesting question that I really haven't thought about it the way that you're asking it. It's really interesting to me, and it's layered. There are layers to what you're pointing to, and I think that it's interesting in the American context when you're talking about, like, that's one thing that is a layer, I think, in what you're illuminating. Yeah. And the term light worker is generally not someone who is in the Christian, the traditional kind of Judeo-Christian environment. Like generally, I think that word connotes someone who's more in the quote unquote new age world of spirituality. It's getting broader, which is exciting to me. It's getting broader and it's going more mainstream. But I was definitely brought up outside of Christianity. I come from my mom is a unity minister.
Wow.
Yeah, she's just a real goddess, and she brought us up ironically in Orange County, California, which is very Christian, traditional Christian, and so we kind of had to hide in a lot of ways because I think you would probably understand this being where you live, is that if you're in a majority traditional Christian environment, if you're not that, you're vilified, and it's actually not, it's not a joke, it's not a light.
Right. It is, in a way, it's interesting because in a way it could be like the issue of race, where you are literally more vulnerable in some ways, in some real concrete ways, just by virtue of your being who you are as a being.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's well said.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think that, growing up, and her mother, they were also, outside of, they were, like my great grandmother was a Christian Scientist. And so my grandmother was raised as in that.
Wow.
And she kind of did her own thing as an adult, loves that world, but also was a Unitarian and then ended up in Unity. And then my mom came along and dabbled in everything and then became a minister, so.
Wow.
So that really was how I was raised in home, And so for me, I feel like I came to the term light worker in adulthood, but that's who I come from. All women have been light workers of some kind. And even in other parts of the family tree, there was I've realized they were all light workers without leaving traditional Christianity necessarily. They were still that term within there, but they were, leaders in social justice, suing the government for discrimination or what have you. Lots of different sort of stories where they stood up for social justice and were kind, good people, leaders in the community, that kind of thing. First African Americans to do things and so on. So they were all kind of carrying the torch.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you, it sounds like, really are living out, in a way, your legacy, or there has been a legacy of this, both activism and being really in the world, but also having this strong spiritual support or backing or connection.
Yes, absolutely. And I also think that part of the layering of thank you for naming that so well, by the way. Yes. And I think that part of your question is very interesting to me from the point of view of race, and particularly in a Western country, and particularly in America, because I think that I would guess, this is just me guessing, but if you were to talk to any Black people who call themselves light workers,
yes,
it would never be separate from race.
See, that's why I'm honored and delighted to have this conversation with you. In part, just my own curiosity, or how that, just to understand more deeply your experience.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I really appreciate the question. It's very rich for me to see that point of view, because I've never thought of them as
exclusive.
separate.
Yes.
Yeah. And neither point of view is the truth. It's just different, right? Different lived experiences. And certainly my light work, I think until recently, didn't center on race, like it was really women, and current events have really, like, for so many people, have activated me,
Yes.
it really, I realized, oh, I was coded for this.
Right.
Okay, got it. Right? Like, ding. It's not something to do with other things. It's actually center now for me. Along with, and really it's with women too, Where before I was dabbling, I had kind of women in the center of my transformational work as a coach and a facilitator, and it just kind of has, and it's almost like it's not me doing it, it's like I'm just kind of an agent of spirit, of my soul, right? So now it's like race is really front and center.
Yes. Just for anyone who isn't necessarily familiar with the term light worker, because I, of course, make assumptions about what that means. But for you, can you just articulate specifically, when you say I am a light worker, what that means for you?
I love that. It's so funny. I started looking into that word a few years ago when I came across it more. And I was like, well, what do people mean by it? And I really settled for myself on, it's someone who's spreading light intentionally, just like really intentionally. They know this is who they are. They know this is what they're doing. They have their way that they're doing it, or ways. I think that's a little different from someone who, you can tell they're a light worker, but maybe they're sitting this life out. They're a great person. They're like amazing in their their community, maybe they're even in a fundamental religion. Right. But that to me is distinct from the word light worker, because there's intent. You're really conscious of it. You're intentionally, whatever it is that you're doing.
Right. Well, to me, it really blends with this idea for you, or this mission statement of transformation, that I hear your intention of bringing light and transforming all those, all the pieces
Mm-hmm.
that you are capable of, bringing your light to, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really, I really appreciate the language you're bringing to that. I think that's
Mm,
really well articulated.
thank you. Thank you. So would you like to talk about your program, Confident and Clear, or help me distinguish between Rainbow Bridges and the Confident and Clear? Is one the program and one is the community?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Rainbow Bridges is the name of my organization.
Mm-hmm.
And underneath that, if you will, you could think of Confident and Clear as just a program, like it's one
Okay.
of the programs. I don't have other programs just yet. There are more coming, and so that's like
Sure.
the main one.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, just to tell you a little bit about it, it's really going to morph. I'm very much I'm from a corporate background in training, and so
Mm-hmm.
I've been evolving out and of that in some ways in terms of masculine energy and how
Mm-hmm.
to wield masculine power and not have it wield me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And really cultivating a lot of feminine energy and feminine approaches to things, which means for me allowing things to morph even as I apply structure,
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
there will be there's going to be a morphing, I think, in 2021 of some of what Confident and Clear is offering in the structure. Right now, it's a 10-week program, though. And as I was saying before, we're in the last couple weeks of my current program. I'm going to launch another one end of January.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do is we go. It's for women of all colors, and we do three things. I say that there are three things that really you want to undertake to have great transformative conversations about race and really be able to keep your emotional balance and clarity and
Mm-hmm.
confidence in these conversations. And one is emotional work, two is intellectual work, and three is conversational work.
Mm-hmm.
And I weave all of that into the session, and what people are up to between the sessions as well. It's some feminine power, which is based on Dr. Claire Zamet's work. It's an amazing transformational body of work. And I think that what she has done with that body of work is actually the keys to the kingdom for resolving a lot of things. A
Yes.
lot of things. And so I weave that in as the emotional work so that women can become unblocked, unblocked, unfettered, be really rooted in their own power and their own inner deep wisdom. That's a big
Wow.
chunk. Yeah, that's like the cornerstone of the program. And then with that unblocked energy, right, you can then step into reading, a book like White Fragility or How to Be an Anti-Racist, and then apply those things to conversations. So the intellectual and the conversational work really go hand in hand. The intellectual work is, well, if you don't know what's going on in a conversation in terms of history and socialization, if you can't kind of like hear the pieces, hear the history, see the socialization that's happening over there with that other person and with yourself, it's
Yes.
just going to be like a swirly, like it's going to be confusing. Like you can feel that things are off when people say certain things. But if you haven't done enough of the intellectual, like reading and sort of thinking and connecting the dots,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
right? It's like you can have all the confidence in the world and be so centered and you're like heightened and you're like, but why does that make me feel so off when that person says that? So, for me, like the way I see it, you've got to deal with the emotions and the confidence, right? And the being rooted in your wisdom,
Yes.
the cognitive, intellectual, well, when they said that, okay, they're saying that because that's actually a historical theme that has morphed. And now I've read about it and can recognize it and speak to it. And then the conversational piece is practice. I give people, we have what's called a conversational toolbox. And it's like it's 3 columns. And on the left, you see things that people say that are very common,
Okay.
things that you just say. I don't want to
Right.
say anything because I don't know. I don't want to offend people, but well, that's okay. I'll just be honest and own how I feel. If someone says all lives matter,
Oh, yes.
like that's problematic for me.
Right.
It says to me that they don't understand history or socialization around race, and
Right.
and that they are in a defensive posture. And so there's nothing I can do or say about that, though. Even if I'm like blissed out and confident, if I haven't read things and educated myself about why it's problematic. And so in the toolkit, I give people things that they can say, and they develop their own things that they can say to these common things. And it's like this exploration where I give a lot, right? Like, here's what I think's going on. I think it's universalism. I think it's the good bad binary, from the book White Fragility, for example. Or here's a classic racist versus anti-racist theme. And then here's what I suggest you say. And I have that in the toolkit. But then it becomes a co-creation with the people in the class every week to create their own as well, and like add to their own toolkit. And then we're practicing as well. We're role playing.
Oh, wow. So you do this is it a group for like a Zoom group?
It's Zoom. Yeah. And we're together for a lot of the class. And then we go into breakout rooms when it's time to role play and practice. Yeah.
Wow. And do you have, I'm assuming, well, I won't assume. Do you? I'm guessing perhaps you really curate or assess who is participating, that you need a certain degree of maturity and positive intent. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. At this point, that's right.
To be able to participate, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you raise a really good point. And I'm still at the size, it's small and intimate for now. I expect it to grow quite a bit next year. And so I have had that question in my mind. Am I going to continue having a one-on-one conversation with everyone who comes in, And I do think that that's important for now. I can see, and because I've seen very large organizations with like hundreds of women in a program actually do that with certain programs to make sure that they're, people are of good intent. And I do think that that's important. On the other hand, the other kind of question that I have, it's like a question mark. It's like this big living question that I have that I suspect will get answered, when I have to answer it, right? When I have 500 people who want to take the class.
As you're evolving. Yes, as it's growing.
Have this question answered, which is, well, what about the people who underneath it all, even though they're perhaps argumentative and defensive or attacking, they actually do really want the transformation and do really care, And so I do have that as this open question. So I don't have an answer for that yet, but I do really, in my heart, I do want to offer my gifts to those people so that they can have some peace ultimately.
Yes.
Ultimately, they are suffering, just as much as anyone else.
Yes. So you're staying in that inquiry and trusting it will. You'll get the opportunity to meet that at some point
some point. Yeah. I think I may have to open it up in some ways. And, I don't know, it's a juicy question. but
yes. And it certainly, when that day comes, it will certainly be an indication of your growth to that point, meaning the size and
mm-hmm.
the reach, which
Mm-hmm.
will be a great problem to have in a way.
In a way, yes. Yeah, yeah.
It's the beauty of leadership where you get to handle those complex and thorny issues.
Yes. It is an indicator, I think, of the impact you're having,
Mm-hmm.
which I welcome. I'm not sure that I've ever really cared about, fame, money, all the ego parts of it.
Yes.
However, I do see that when you are dealing with problems like that, it means your reach is wide. And so
Yes.
that's a blessing.
Yes. So tell us about Rainbow Bridges and
Mhm.
where is this community? How do people connect with your community?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all online. My vision is to build on what I call my tech nerdery, tech nerd, of many years, and was in the technology industry for a long time. And my vision is really to have a global transformational learning community.
Wow.
It's actually modeled after Claire Zamet's amazing Feminine
Mm-hmm.
Power Global
Mm-hmm.
Community,
Mm-hmm.
where she has thousands of women in her community, and thousands of women have gone through her programs over the years, and it's all been virtual, and it's
Wow.
extraordinary. It's just extraordinary what you can accomplish in terms of transformational work virtually. And
Yes.
I've always, as a tech nerd, been really passionate about it and specialized in it even in my tech career.
Uh-huh.
And so now I'm parlaying all of that. Like I'm building all of that to build out this global community of women who come together around this subject. It's very much an intentional endeavor to do the emotional work, to do the intellectual work, and to do the conversational practice all together.
Mm.
Whether it's in a program, or I'm going to have like open practice sessions as well, like where people can just kind of practice,
Cool.
that's coming.
Cool.
Because sometimes
Yes.
you just need to practice. You're actually kind of good at it, but you need a little tune up.
Yes.
That kind of thing is going to be offered as well. And that's really the vision, is that it is a lot. It has a very wide reaching impact, and that the transformation is very deep. It's not just like let's go lift the
Right.
surface and sell millions of these things to every person in the world.
To build your empire, so to
Yeah.
speak. Yes.
Right. Because you get what I'm saying. Like sometimes when you're
Yeah.
trying to go wide, people
Yes.
skim off the depth, to make it
Yes.
more palatable to more people.
Yes.
But my vision is to be palatable to the masses, if you will, while still retaining the depth. And it's all going to be virtual and inside of, a beautiful, safe, warm community.
I love that. Yes. So that's why I knew when I choose guests, I always feel like, yes, this is somebody that I need to have a conversation with. And you just said the words, the depth, like not a lot of a lot of things do matter to me, but depth is up there at the top of the list.
Yes, I really get it. Me too. I just sort of I just don't have any tolerance isn't quite the right word. I'm not magnetized by surface things at all.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I absolutely get you there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so rich. Depth is so like I don't
Yeah.
understand why everyone doesn't love it. But
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just so, I think that depth is often, you can, when you experience depth, when people have not when they're not doing it with skill,
ah,
so confronting. to people. It's so confronting and scary, and it makes you start to I think that there's a fragmentation that can happen, which is a
Yes.
natural part, right? It's a natural part of the caterpillar going into the chrysalis. There's a
Yes.
fragmentation that happens that actually turns into goop in there, and
Yes,
then it
it
comes out
dissolves.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it dissolves. But if you don't have the skill, if you throw people into depth without the skill to create the and the intentionality to create the chrysalis,
Mm-hmm.
then they're just goop. And you know, and then
That's,
they're like, you know what I'm not sure how to say what it is, but it isn't pretty.
no, you're right. You're right. It is actually the healthy masculine. It is the structure. It
Yeah,
is the
exactly.
context. It is the
Mhm.
guardrails, and it's part of what I appreciate about uh, your program and the way that you have delineated these different skill sets. And
Mm.
it seems to me, I know that the we'll say the conduit or the portal in is the question or the conversation of race, but it certainly seems generalizable for once people learn those skills
Mhm.
around racial conversations, they could take them to
Yes,
any other difficult
that's right.
conversation.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and I'm glad you brought that up. That is, something that the women in my program have been sharing. That they
Yes.
are finding themselves with a lot more, ease
Mm.
in these difficult situations. For example, one of the women had a conflict with her sister about her niece,
Hmm.
and it was like
Hmm.
this emotionally sort of tricky sort of conversation. And it was beautiful how the participant in my course handled it, because she used what she had been learning about, seeking first to understand,
Mm.
taking responsibility for the chrysalis of the conversation,
Mm.
extending like a radical empathy and generosity as well. And
Yes.
so that had the conversation with her sister, which started off kind of touchy. Like her sister was like, well, why are you talking to me about my kid? Kind of defensiveness.
Bristly, yes.
Yeah. And it was this beautiful conversation where they actually ended up having a real breakthrough in their relationship, and ended on a real high note, and a lot of connection and intimacy was created.
Mm.
And that's, the beats of that conversation are the same, whatever the conversation topic is. I just happen to, you
Yes.
know, be bringing
Yes.
grace to it.
Right. And that's the teaching. That's the portal in, the doorway in
Yeah.
is through conversation about race, which
Mhm.
is so important. And I think about like what you have created. I think about what you have created, and it just makes me so excited because, oh my gosh, like how much healing, growth, transformation, awakening can happen for people
Mhm.
to learn these skills and to do it. You've done it in this very concrete, tangible way.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, thank
uh,
you. Thank you
yes,
so much.
I'm waving the banner like yes, yes, yes. Growth, lots of growth for
Growth, growth, that's right. Then you get to be a butterfly. Yeah, yeah.
right. Sustainable growth at a rate you can do it.
Mhm. That's right. That's right.
Yes.
Beautifully said.
So, if someone wanted to participate in the Rainbow Bridges community, how do they find it? What do they do?
Great, thank you. I forgot to say my website. I get so
Mhm.
excited about what's happening. I just like, and this and that and this.
The depth of the
The depth,
conversation.
right? I know the depth. I'm like, website? What? So the website is rainbow-bridges.teachable.com. So it's rainbow-bridges.teachable.com. And that's like the homepage, and you can click on all courses at the top and go to the Confident and Clear
Hmm.
course page and
Hmm.
read about it. And then
Excellent.
my email is on there if people want to reach out. I'm at Rainbow Bridges LM for Lori McDaniel. So it's
Mm-hmm.
rainbowbridgeslm@gmail.com.
Terrific. And then you have a Facebook group as well?
I do. Yeah, I have the Rainbow Bridges community on Facebook. I don't know the link for that off the top of my head, but
I will have it in the show notes.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yes.
I always do. I guess I'm not that much of a tech nerd. A true tech nerd would have memorized the URL. But yeah, people are welcome to join and reach out with any questions. I love talking about it as well. So if people are, what I'm going to be doing is offering complimentary coaching. So if people, it's not up on my website yet, but I'm just going to be offering that from now through the end of January. If people want to schedule complimentary coaching with me, like let's say they're struggling with an issue around race.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it could be any life issue because as we were saying, I think that for women especially, it's so easy to translate, from one area of life to another.
Yes.
So if people would like to take advantage of that, I'm available for that. And I'm scheduling those now.
Wonderful. So, and your course, Confident and Clear.
Mm-hmm.
So this episode you and I are recording now will be out just after the first of the year. So it will be probably later that month, later in January.
It'll be sometime the last week in January. I don't have the dates just yet. Sometime between now and, once we start up again at the beginning of the year, I'm going to put the actual date of when we're starting, but it'll be that last week of January that we start the next 10-week program.
Great. So if someone's interested, they can go to your website, which is also the link is in the show notes, and or the Facebook group. I'm sure you'll be talking about it there as well.
Yeah.
Good.
Wonderful.
So as we bring this to a close, is there anything else, if you were to just check into your own inner wisdom, that feels important to name, express, or articulate?
Yeah, thank you for that. Thanks for asking that. I think that the last thing I'll say is two parts. And one is, it's really important for people to seek first to understand the other person, and to actually try and have compassion and understanding about where they're coming from, even when everything in your conditioning is like, no, don't do that.
That makes no sense. Yeah. I don't get it. Yes.
Right. So that's thing one. That would be my wisdom,
pearl.
Wisdom pearl one. Wisdom pearl two is that, it's so important for everyone to get on the same page about what racism is. It's really not what we think it is. A lot of us think that it's bad, mean people doing bad, mean things or saying bad, mean things to other people. But that's not it. Racism is actually a complex social historical system that we're all inside of. It's this complex system.
Yes.
And so I have that as a cornerstone of what my mission is to get everyone out of the good, bad thing.
The illusion. Yeah.
Because it becomes like, well, are you a good person or a bad person? And it's like, well, this is not about morality at all. This is about the system, right? So let's just take that off the table, right? We're not talking about whether you're a good, bad, or bad person. We want to look at the system and how it's showing up in this moment. That's all. So that's something I'm really passionate about as well.
Yes. Good. I'm glad you put that out there. And from my perspective, it seems like it is a byproduct of or a key tenet of the patriarchy, we'll say.
Yeah.
So as we are moving forward and the patriarchy is dissolving, and racism will not dissolve fast enough, but neither of them, that those are both aspects plus other things in addition that are needing to crumble and kind of emerge. A new, more whole and honoring way of relating to each other can emerge as those crumble and dissolve.
Yes, I love that. And dissolving and emerging. I think that's exactly the process we're in, and it's really beautiful. It's really quite beautiful and extraordinary. And
yes, when it's not a hot mess, it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
It is, but it is. Yes, I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome. Well, thank you, Lori, you are the first episode and interview of the year. So thank you for starting us off in 2021 with new possibilities.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Joni. Thanks so much for having me on. It's just been a really rich and delightful conversation. I really want to acknowledge you and your spirit of generosity and compassion that really comes through on this subject, and thank you for your grace around it. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm taking that in. I really appreciate it, Lori. And I want to take a moment just to say thank you, dear listener, for being present with us today, and want to acknowledge, as always, the reminder to trust what your heart knows. Thanks for listening to Trust Your Sacred Feminine Flow. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend, and be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. And visit theradianceequation.com to receive your copy of The Radiance Equation, a visionary's guide to coming out of hiding, owning your wisdom, and creating your greatest impact.